Welcome into Pro Football Today. Kevin Walsh, Donnie Rightside, Joe Lisi. We are live on SportsGrid as we get ready for what many believe is the best weekend of the year of that NFL calendar. 2 today, 2 tomorrow. You cap it off with a national championship on Monday as well. Lisi, we got a lot to get into here.
Oh, we do. And these both games today, 2 number ones, Kansas City and Detroit, respectively, have quality games. I mean, you're talking about 2 young teams in terms of Houston and C.J. Stroud and Washington with Jaden Daniels playing a little bit with house money. Both big underdogs today on the road. Which one potentially will step up? We'll see how it plays out, but I think we're going to see some great action a little bit later, guys.
I think the prop bets will be popping specifically in that second game. Or put it this way, they're in a dome, not worried about any weather conditions. 2 offenses that can absolutely get after it. We'll see what we get in Kansas City. Andy Reid off a bye, we know how successful they've been, but also you're looking at the Texans. Not your typical dome team. They're going to bring that defense. They're going to bring a good pass rush here. If Mixon is healthy, maybe get that ground game underway. So we are looking at 2 teams, deservedly so, Joe, of that number 1 seed. The rest advantages that they have. This is why you work so hard during the regular season. You want that rest. Those 2 teams have it. Can they be upset? We'll find out.
You mentioned the rest advantage, and I think that's an important note here. Of course, these teams off of a bye, because you look at today's spreads. Kansas City Chiefs are an 8.5-point favorite against Houston, and the Detroit Lions are a 9.5-point favorite against Washington. And I'm not sure you could justify those numbers without heavily weighing in the bye week.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting. Yeah, we talk home field a lot. What's it worth, right? Well, what's a bye week worth? 1, 2, 3, 6? I don't know. The Chiefs are laying 5 more points than they did to the very same football team 2-3 weeks ago, week 16, when they played Houston at home. We know the bye week matters, Lisi, and I wonder if it's something that was elevated because of last week's results. You think about teams that rested in week 18, the Philadelphia Eagles, the LA Rams took some time off. Houston only played the 1 drive and then rested everybody else. And I wonder if that elevated a little bit the value of the bye weeks for our 1 seeds here today.
Think about Kansas City, right? They rested everybody. Their backups got abused by Denver and Bo Nix. They lose 38-0. So typically they're almost on a 3-week hiatus since the last time they played against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think that's what you look at when you break down this game, coupled with the fact, to your point, that they won by 8 points. And if you watch that game in terms of the second half, they did have the football inside the 30-yard line. They did kneel on it, so potentially it could have been maybe 15, 11-point victory for the Kansas City Chiefs in the fourth quarter. They're undefeated at home as well. And I think that's another factor. We talk about Buffalo being a dominant home team. Kansas City is a dominant home team along with Detroit. Detroit's 7-2 overall. So we'll see exactly what you get. But I think when you look at the underdogs in the game, the fact that C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels were able to get, I want to say, those butterflies out, try to basically right the ship with their offenses that maybe were struggling for the most part in terms of the end of the regular season. They got on track last week against quality opponents, and we'll see if that momentum can continue later today.
I'm excited to see this, too, because, number one, you get the home teams with the advantage of rest. They're the number 1 teams, that's what they get, a seeding. But you're also talking about 2 unbelievable home field advantages that you're going to have. Kansas City, widely known as the loudest stadium in the NFL. And understand this. Buying a ticket to Detroit versus Washington today, unbelievably high. To get in price somewhere around $900, which lets you know that this team isn't used to hosting big games, let alone hosting big playoff games. That is going to be absolutely ear-screeching in that dome today. So I love the fact that the home teams are playing. I love the fact they're going to have the atmosphere for both of those home teams, and that's going to play into both of the equations today for me.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, though. You look on the other side of the field for the road teams, and it's 2 very young quarterbacks that are looking to cement their status within this league very early on into their careers. C.J. Stroud now, 2 years, 2 postseason wins. Can he make it a third? It would be one of the biggest wins, forget his career, that we've seen any team pull off within the last half decade, right? Mahomes has never lost in the divisional round. There's a lot of conversation around that. Jaden Daniels looking to become one of very few rookie quarterbacks to make a conference championship game in that first season here, Joe. And if you look at both Houston and Washington, their quarterbacks gave them a ton in that wild card victory. they're probably going to need more today.
Absolutely. If they're both of these teams or either one are going to strike the upset, they need C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels to make plays over the top. And even with their legs, we saw C.J. Stroud bust contain and make plays, sustain drives in terms of that matchup against L.A. on the ground. Can he do it against a very physical, athletic defense in terms of Kansas City? And what did Houston learn from last year, right? They were in a similar position to what Washington is this year, right? They get the victory at home over Joe Flacco in Cleveland. They go on the road. They play with the half with the number one team at the time in terms of Baltimore 10-10, and then all of a sudden the better team just pulled away in terms of the Ravens, and they get blown out in the second half. What did DeMeco Ryans, what did that team learn? And they're more mature now. So now they already played this opponent a few weeks ago. They were within striking distance. Tank Dell goes down in the mid-third quarter. It was a 17-16 game. From that point on, they just played flat in the fourth quarter. Was it the Tank Dell injury? We don't know, but I think you'll get a good base early on whether this offense is in gear, and I expect a huge performance, Donnie, out of Nico Collins tonight.
It's a good point you bring up, too, because last time these two faced off, you had a healthy Joe Mixon, not so healthy in this game. You had a healthy Tank Dell. Obviously, he's out with that devastating leg injury that he had, so you're looking at some of those components that you hoped would be able to show up for the Houston Texans taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. And I brought this up on the radio this week. What a shame. Like, I almost expected this could have been a possibility of an AFC championship game with legitimate thoughts that Houston could knock them off because Stephon Diggs would be healthy, Dell would be healthy, the offensive line would be much more healthy here for the Houston Texans. Now, it is taking place in the divisional round, and major advantage to Kansas City, as you see with the line with 8.5. But I look at the Houston season, regardless of today, still a success for me, even though I had those super high expectations as Joe. This was the team with C.J. Stroud I thought would be able to challenge the Kansas City Chiefs, and maybe they do today.
I think that is one of the interesting elements there is if, you preseason snapshot that AFC picture.
Correct.
You go, oh, yeah, 100%, right? Houston, though, before their game against the Chargers, I think were viewed from the books as the worst team actually in the playoffs, AFC or NFC. And, look, they're still kind of viewed as that worst team, lowest chance when you look at the odds there, but it takes just one game. The very interesting thing is, of course, today we'll be heavily focused on Saturday, but you talk about tomorrow's games. I do wonder if Houston pulls off the upset, if it in any way impacts the Buffalo-Baltimore game. If either one of those teams are either additionally motivated of, oh my gosh, it's right there, we don't even have to beat them, or if there's a little pressure of like, oh my God, like to me a little bit, Lisi, if Houston pulls off the upset for Buffalo, there could be a little extra tension. Because Buffalo specifically can't get through Kansas City. Baltimore's had playoff issues. I wonder if that big game tomorrow, the MVP battle, if the result of Houston and Kansas City could have any impact on the performances.
Oh, it's possible. And think about the previous performances at home in a playoff game, right? Last year against Kansas City, they lost Buffalo, and they had Joe Burrow and Cincinnati, and they got abused by 14 points a couple of years ago. So I think that's always a factor when you're playing at home. And, oh, by the way, you're playing one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL in Lamar Jackson and Baltimore. We'll see how those games play out. But I'm really more interested, believe it or not, in today's action because I think we get fireworks.
Yeah, Kevin's right on that, too. It's a fun scenario to have because also you're looking at a game with Washington and Detroit. Washington somehow pulls the upset over Detroit. That Philadelphia Eagles game turns into an absolute bonanza because the Eagles were then saying, oh, my goodness, it just got so much easier to try to get to a championship. And same thing with the Rams. If they knock the Eagles out and also Detroit gets knocked out, here they come.
Well, all of a sudden, the Rams actually get to have a home playoff game, potentially, right?
Yeah.
Which would be an incredible element there. We'll also maybe talk a little bit about the weather that could be expected in Philadelphia. I know impacting some of the action for that game. But
move the show.
We waste no time. We dive right into it. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans. Where's the value? We break that down next right here on SportsGrid.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here, it's Pro Football Today, and the Kansas City Chiefs will take the field at home once again. First time in a long time since we've seen Kansas City. The last was on Christmas, and they put forward probably their best performance of the season, a 29-10 victory against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, yeah, they only outgained them by 25 yards, and everything Kansas City's mostly done this season has been fraudulent, but apparently Kansas City now, best football of the season at the right time. The defense. Oh, the defense. Listen, I usually like to set it up and kick it.
Kick it over.
I love the Texans in this game. And for me, this is not even a question of the spread. This number is ridiculous, and it's indefensible. You've heard me mention spread math many times. This is the easiest spread math you will ever have to do in your life. This was 3.5 3 weeks ago. Where'd they find 5 points? 5.5 points? Nowhere. This number's outrageous, and it's completely wrong. I think Houston wins this game. I genuinely do. I think Stroud found a level of confidence throughout that game against L.A. that he can carry into the game here against Kansas City, and they can attack early. And I think for the Chiefs, all of those, listen, we'll figure it out, don't worry about it stuff, eventually, the reason I harped on it so long is it comes back to bite you. There's a lot of people out there that think this game's going to be 14-0 Kansas City. A lot of predictions that the Chiefs' first drive is 1,000% a touchdown drive. Yeah, I don't expect that. There's an excellent defense on the other side of the field in the Houston Texans, a defense you're much better off trying to run against and throw against. So if all of a sudden Pat wants to come out and turn the clock back 4 or 5 years, I don't think that's going to be as easy as everyone anticipates. Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter will be able to – it is the perfect pass rush to have for a team who is excellent on the interior and struggles on the exterior the way that Kansas City does. We know that the secondary is talented and bows up as well for Houston. I expect a close game the entire way that I legitimately believe Houston wins here today on the road.
I'm with you, Kev. I believe Houston's live. I think it steps up for C.J. Stroud to have a big day today. We saw 282 last week, a touchdown with an interception, and Nico Collins stepped up as well with 7 receptions 122 yards and a touchdown. You look at the games for Kansas City. We talk about it, 15-2 overall, 8-0 at home. They've won those games at home, Donnie, by an average margin of victory of 5.1 points per game. The two dominant wins at home were New Orleans on a Monday night. They laid 5.5. They won by 13, and you can make an argument the game against the Texans where they laid 3.5 and won by 8, right? The last 6 games, though, Kev, when you talk about should this spread be in line, 8.5 points, they've won the last 6 games after the Buffalo game by an average margin of victory of 8 points per game. It doesn't include the loss, obviously, with backups to Denver.
Yeah.
And you look at Pat Mahomes. During those 6 games, he's averaged 254 passing yards per game, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. But I am concerned about the layoff. 2-3 weeks' time, that quarterback to wide receiver relationship, the offensive line might take a quarter or so. And I believe C.J. Stroud, Donnie's playing with house money. He was a little inconsistent in the first quarter. Once he got going in the second quarter, he was within rhythm. I think it carries over today. Keep an eye out for Nico Collins, but Dalton Schultz as well could be an X factor.
You're looking at this game for Houston. Again, I normally would agree. They're a good football team, but they're not coming in hitting on all cylinders. And at the same time, you look at Andy Reid in the regular season, 21-4 off the bye in his career was sensational. And the only game that he lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the postseason in the divisional round we had the bye was, I believe it was 2016, like 18-16, something like that. Outside of that, this is what their MO is. They have the best defensive coordinator in football that nobody talks about, the best play caller / coach in football, that's Andy Reid, who dominates, absolutely dominates, coming off of a bye week here. And now you're taking a look at a Houston Texans team that I'm getting a half of a punch. Like, picture a boxer in there with a heavy left and a heavy right going, I don't even have a right punch today, just all left. You have Nico Collins. He's sensational. That's all you have. You got Mixon coming into this game half one-legged at this point. Who knows if he's even going to play? You lost Tank Dell, who was sensational in the previous game. If you're telling me, which, hey, I would love Mechie to have a big game today because of the parlay I'm going to explain. But outside of that, one team completely rested and ready and dominates with a massive home field advantage in cold weather, playing a dome team that has half of their football team injured when they need them.
So the thing for me is, right, I think that all of that, I understand when we're talking about the outright perspective of this game. And I think that there certainly is a world, Donnie, where Houston only scores 17 in this game. Mm-hmm. That's probably not enough to win. It's definitely enough to cover. Why am I supposed to believe the Chiefs are going to show up in the playoffs and have their best offensive game of the season? That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. And I want to make this point to people because there's a lot of people who think it's the same thing as last year. No, it's not. Last year's offense ranked top 10 in yards per play. This year's offense was tied with Pittsburgh for the worst offense in yards per play to make the postseason and was 8th worst in the entire NFL. Oh, but the defense. Last year's defense was 5th in opponent yards per play. This year's defense ranks outside the top 5 of teams that made the playoffs. They are objectively not as good as they were last year. It is not even close. It is very disrespectful and disingenuous to who they were last year to view this year as a carbon copy. I know it's the same guys at the top in Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes and Kelsey, but they're not performing at the same level. They just aren't.
Right.
And I think ultimately, while we can say Houston does not have that 100% full deck, that is absolutely true. But I don't think Houston's MO, they're not, you know what, Donnie, is? This isn't last year's Houston. Last year's Houston was 31, 35, 38, light it up. This year's Houston needs Stroud to make a couple of plays, maybe with the legs like he did last week, and that defense has to step up and turn Mahomes over.
But let me intersect in this, too, because this Houston team that lost by 8 points to Kansas City on equal rest is not as good as the Houston team that's coming into today, which is much worse off. Like, you lost down a couple key players at massive positions, and you don't have the rest advantage Kansas City does.
There was a flipping moment of that game, which was the Tank Dell injury.
Yeah.
Because they were the extra point was pending.
They missed it.
They missed it, and then we know how that game went out. We'll talk a little bit more about why I think that was, what that means for today's games, and what you can expect from Patrick Mahomes, because the man is back in the spotlight, and maybe it does mean big things. We keep breaking down the opening game of the divisional round next.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl, but the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Back with you right here on SportsGrid. We're breaking down the game between Kansas City and Houston, an 8.5-point spread. I believe anywhere that you look at a 41.5 total as well. When we hit our break, Donnie mentioned how Kansas City and Houston played last or a few weeks ago, and then what things looked like without Tank Dell. So I wanted to dive into that a little bit more. With Tank Dell, 6 drives for Houston, no punts. Stroud was picked off twice. He also had 2 touchdown passes and was completing over 64% of his passes at about 7 yards per pass attempt. And what followed, again, no punts, 6 drives, 2 3-and-outs on just 3 drives, 5 of 11 for less than 50 yards. So all of a sudden, they couldn't move the football at all. And I understand, Don, if you go, see, boom, they're done today. I am going more on the emotional aspect of I watched C.J. Stroud look like he wanted to go home, and I don't say that rude. Absolutely heartbroken to watch clearly a very good friend of his, Tank Dell, again suffer a season-ending injury, which already has happened to Tank Dell in his 2-year NFL career. So I look at that as now they've had success against this KC defense. If not for a super long delay, that game is very likely 17-17, fourth quarter. Let's see who closes the door. And again, maybe the Chiefs close the door, maybe not. I took away from that game, the Texans can move the football. And today, clearer minds, they will be able to.
I think they will. And again, I think when you look at Kansas City and the games that they have played down to the level of competition, they were a 9.5, 8.5, 9-point favorite against Tampa Bay. They get pushed to overtime. Baker had success. We talk about the L.A. Chargers. They win that ball game 19-17. They win 19-17 against Aiden O'Connell, throwing for 346 yards. Where are they exposed from a defensive perspective? For me, it is the tight ends. Look at week number 1, Isaiah Likely with 100 yards, right? Brock Bowers, 140 yards in the loss when they played in Arrowhead. Mike Gesicki, when they lost that game by 1, had, I believe, 8 or 9 targets by Joe Burrow, 94 yards in the receiving game. We've seen tight ends expose the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's why I do believe Dalton Schultz, Stover, those tight ends could be the difference to maybe C.J. Stroud not just scoring 17 points, but potentially getting into the high 20s, 23, 24. I think they have to push tempo, Donnie. I think if you're talking about Houston right now, they can't go in methodical. Let's see where we're at. We're not at home. We have to take the game to Kansas City, and that starts with the passing attack. I expect Stroud to get to 250, 275 plus. If he's nowhere near that, I think they get blown out, but I think he has a big day today.
And also, you take a look at one of the starting cornerbacks that was starting the year for Kansas City back in Watson, also to go ahead with McDuffie's one of the best cornerbacks in football as is. For me, I think they're going to say, we're taking Nico Collins away. What can you do? Now, granted, it's not that easy. Hey, we'll take Saquon Barkley away from the Eagles. I mean, good players get schemed up correctly, and they beat defenders. You know what I mean? So I always love that. Well, they just take the best player out of the game. Why doesn't everybody just take the best player out of the game, and then everybody wins every week? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm listening to some not. They're like,
I love that.
They go, now what happens if everybody throws 8 in a box and stops Saquon? What's Jalen going to do? You mean to tell me coordinators keep showing up against the Eagles with light boxes? Go ahead.
Exactly.
The stupidity, man.
Yeah, that's my favorite. Like, well, Nico Collins is one of the best wide receivers. Just take him out of the game. Yeah, easiest said than done. It's not going to be. He's going to get targets, double-digit targets. If he has big plays, that's certainly going to help him. But I do agree with Joe on one aspect of it. When you are an underdog, you have to do unconventional things. And if Joe Mixon is 50%, the point of it, Kevin and I were talking before the show, we starting over the sticks, like, hand it off first down to 2nd and 9. Like, you have to change, as Joe likes to say, tendencies, which means Houston is really built on defense right now. But if you come out 3 and 4 wide, throwing the football, using your tight end, but saying, you know what, I understand you want to take Collins away. We're still throwing deep because good things happen with great wideouts. Big-time catches, penalties can move the sticks down the field. I don't think you can be conventional today and win a football game with Houston. They're going to have to break some rules, which means to me, if I'm betting it and I'm not taking a side, C.J. Stroud better be 250-plus and 2 touchdown passes if they want to hang around.
And I think there's points today. I think last time they played, it was 42.5. They got to 46.
Yeah.
This now with the chips in the middle of the table, the intensity, it's a win-now situation. I think we get to the high 40s, 50s potentially.
And we are going to get into Mahomes a little bit next segment, Kelsey as well, and then we're going to certainly break into Commanders' lines. We have a lot of time here in this opening hour. Sometimes we talk about games, bets, props.
Mm-hmm.
If I was in charge, I like what I'm seeing here. It could go the other way. That's how Mixon is for me. My perhaps crazy brain is this could be great because we don't have to then run Mixon 25 times in a negative capacity. It could go the other way. They go, let's keep pounding. And I'm like, he can't even walk, man. Just let CJ drop back and pass on 1st and 10. Let's talk about Mahomes and Kelsey before we get into Commanders Lions next.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented 3rd straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Well,
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Back with you right here. We're on Pro Football Today, and it would not be appropriate, even if I'm not on his numbers necessarily, and maybe you guys aren't as well, if I didn't just dedicate a little extra time to Mahomes and Kelsey, because while I have my feelings about this game, and I've been, disappointed with some of the performances this year that I've seen out of Mahomes, it is still Patrick Mahomes, unbeaten in the divisional round. He's a very tough-to-beat quarterback. We know that. 255.5 is his passing prop. 1.5 passing touchdowns, minus 160. The rushing prop checks in today at 24.5, climbing number. Kelsey, 52.5. All right, that's a little bit reserved, and that's because that KC pass-catching room that at once was how is he doing this? Well, now it's a little depth to it. With Hollywood Brown back to trade for Hopkins, Worthy getting better. Mm-hmm. When you look at Mahomes today, Donnie, I see somebody being priced not for what he did in the regular season, but somebody who's been for what he's done in past postseason performances.
Yes, and also you have to understand this as well. The public is betting it more heavily and condensed games as opposed to the regular season. Same way we get closer to the NFC Championship game, AFC title game, and the Super Bowl, the public tends to jump in. So they might be parachuting in. Hey, what are we doing today? Well, let's watch the Kansas City game. What's Mahomes? He definitely throws 2. Do we know that? No, obviously not. But he is juiced as if he is wheeling and dealing and throwing multiple touchdowns every week. But the one thing I do like is Kelsey has really appeared in the last 2 playoffs, even if you thought he had a down season, because he's basically going to get 3 weeks off to be shot out of a cannon and say, you know what? I feel really good. This is the best my legs have felt the entire way. Also, talking a look at Hollywood Brown, I think his first game was the Houston Texans game. He now has weeks and weeks and weeks to fit into the fold. Worthy's come along after having a slower rookie start here as not being the focal point to now just about the focal point. So I understand the expectations, but I was talking to Joe, before we got on the show. This is a game where I'm looking at Kansas City going, I think they score points, I think they can win the football game, and I think they can cover. But there's so many cooks in the kitchen, Joe, including the backfield and Patrick Mahomes. I actually don't know who has the overall value. Like, let me pick this guy, and oh, no, Hopkins had a big day. Let me pick this guy. Oh, no, it's Worthy with the big day.
Or Noah Gray or Watson, right? One of those players that steps up.
Parsons.
So I agree with you. I think, Kev, when you look at the numbers, though, I think they're sort of priced correctly for Mahomes. And again, you talk about from the Bills' loss, 6 games, he's averaged 254. His number's 255, right? Prior to the Bills' loss, 10 games, right? He's averaged 245 passing yards per game. So, all right, so you want to take right in the middle of that. Let's say it's 250. So he's 5 yards off, with a playoff type of situation. Here's the thing, and I agree with Donnie. Which one is he going to go to? I will say when you watched the game last week, L.A. and Houston, Justin Herbert, early first quarter, they were running the football effectively. He was hitting the tight end. Disley made some plays. Houston adjusted. So, again, we talk about, all right, who do you want to take away or at least, let's say, limit if you can? I don't want him to look and stare down Travis Kelce in any capacity, especially early on. I don't want him to get comfortable. Yeah. And on third down situations, if we can limit Kelce to maybe 4 receptions, 50 yards right on his number, that's a pretty good job. I just don't want him 11 receptions, 100 yards, what he did in the AFC Championship game last year. I do think Hollywood Brown is the outlier because of the speed perspective. You talk about players potentially working in the slot. We have D. Hopkins, I believe, at 38, 39 is his number. Hollywood has a higher number at 43.5. That's why you acquired him. I would say Worthy, but again, I believe that Pat Mahomes likes to go to veterans in terms of these type of situations. It's D-Hop, it's Hollywood Brown, and then maybe if you want to take Kelsey, maybe an anytime touchdown with Pacheco at plus 165.
To me, the number for Mahomes that is most interesting is whether or not he throws an interception.
Okay.
6 straight games to end the regular season without a pick. 8 of the last 9, he did not throw an interception after being picked off the first 7 games of the season and some multiple times. Does Mahomes turn the football over? That becomes – and I know he's very good in the postseason about protecting the ball. Houston is ask Herbert.
Right.
Yeah. Again, Herbert threw 3 interceptions in the regular season and 4 last week against Houston.
Yeah.
They are very, very good at turning the quarterback over. Let's move over to game number 2.
I just want to add one thing, too. If you're looking Mahomes rushing, that game against Houston was the game he came off the ankle. Yeah. He did score. He was an 11-1 price in that game. So, that could be another look in terms of this game for anytime touchdown.
Yeah, he'll run when he needs to.
Yeah, which always seems to be at not the time that you need him to run.
Yeah. The Detroit Lions, a number that's moving around here. I want to quickly, Donnie, just check in with you because it's very relevant for your favorite way to play this game today.
Correct.
Where are you seeing the spread line up right now between Detroit and Washington?
Which is key, because you got 9.5s at FanDuel, you got 9.5s at BetMGM, 9.5s at 365. Las Vegas outlets around like 9 points, but the only 8.5 that's been sitting there firm this morning has been through DraftKings here, which has a teaser player, which we'll bring up just a little bit with these 2 games and maybe factoring into a best bet today. We'll get to that later, but that is a big number and a big crossover point. But it looks like the decided favorite has been all week with Detroit. We were worrying if it would get to 10. Now, 9.5s are out there. I don't think we see 10 because that's just a massive number that people just bet the minute it gets there. I think it hovers around 9. And if you ask me this question, it's 9.5. The closer we get to game time, it's more likely to go to 9 than 10. I think we can agree.
Yeah, I think so, too.
Well, what I think is interesting is because in terms of key numbers, the difference between 8.5 and 9.5 doesn't really seem like much. And I've heard some say, 9.5 is probably out there to protect from the potential tease options, right? So I think it is interesting that DK is holding out that 8.5 number. If I'm curious, we used to do this a lot when we would do the pick sixes, Donnie. And I know we can get into it more, but of the 4 options that are on the plate today,
yes,
who 6 points your direction is the most interesting option to you? Of the 4 options
we have
Of the 4
options, if I had to pick one or pick 2?
Just one.
Just one of those, I probably would say, honestly, it would be Kansas City.
Down to 2.5.
Just to win the football game based on what I know from Kansas City and the health coming in here. Because we'll get to that Washington game and really go over it. I think Washington, for me, is more propensity to be a more dangerous football team, if that makes sense. Even though I don't think either one of these road teams wins. That's just the way I look at it. At the end of the day, they go, wow. Washington walked in and beat Detroit by 1 point and said, ooh, that's a big upset. That's crazy. But if I see Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes outside of barring a catastrophic injury and just play the game out and they lose, I would be more shocked by that. So it would be the Chiefs for me.
For you?
For me, it would be taking Houston to 14.5, 2 touchdowns. But I like both. I would take the points on either total, too. 49.5 with the late game and 35.5. With the early game. I believe we're going to have 5. Out of all the totals, and I love totals, I'm more intrigued about both of these games today from the total perspective than tomorrow.
Yeah, I think, what's interesting is I was, and not a pure teaser, but I was looking around at both of those dogs catching 14.5, and that's at a plus price. And one of the reasons it's at a plus price is at plus 9.5, that's not a full 6-point teaser getting Detroit through the 2 touchdowns plus, which is one of the interesting elements of this game. And you can tell through that, I like both dogs today. I think what's very interesting is there – so, again, it depends how you are as a bettor, but the ebbs and flows. If Houston pulls off the upset, do people get more confident that Detroit wins their game, covers their game, rolls within their football game? That's how people are.
Yeah, because both number ones can't go down in the same day.
Or
they both go down. And we have pandemonium tomorrow.
It would be something if everybody's dream conference championship Sunday gets crushed today. Because the reality is, while that would be for Houston and Washington, unbelievable moments truly in the franchise for both would be top, percent franchise moments. So many people are like, just give me Philly, Detroit, Kansas City versus the winner of Buffalo and Baltimore. Or we're going to get touchdown lines potentially in the divisional round. We're going to take a break. We're going to dive a lot more into Detroit and Washington. Jared Goff versus Jaden Daniels. And NFC North looking a little interesting in the light. We'll talk more about that here on SportsGrid.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl, but the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, we're back with you right here. We're taking a look now at the game between Detroit and Washington. 9.5-point line primarily. Some 8.5s out there, which could be key. The NFC North. The wild card weekend energy was that of, remember when they used to throw 14 Big Ten teams in the NCAA tournament, and all of a sudden you go, well, none of them are left, and it's the round of 32. I'm not following the math here. I had wondered throughout the regular season a little bit about the strength of the North. You knew they were good, but the idea that they were like, oh, this is this unbelievable thing, just, what had they done outside of playing one another? So we see the Packers. By the way, the Packers and Vikings combined over 120 minutes of football covered for 99 seconds. That's what those two, you could argue that those were the two worst performances of the opening 6 games of the postseason. So, okay, let's remove what Detroit did against those two teams. 4 games against playoff teams. Oh, would you look at that? They went 2-2. Rams, overtime, week 1. They had to come back in that game, and they won the coin toss. Many who watched that game would tell you whoever won the coin toss would win that game. Okay. Then they played Tampa Bay at home. Yes, they had about 700 yards. They lost. They couldn't get conversions. Where have we seen that happen before with Detroit? Okay, got it. So now we're sat there, we're 1-1. They then go to Houston, the team that everybody said was the absolute worst playoff team to make the entire thing. Got through 5 picks, but they had a miraculous comeback. They win that game at the gun by 3. And then Buffalo came to their building, and I think they're still scoring in that game. They lost at home by 6. So all of a sudden, Detroit, 4 games, 2-2, 0 of them won by a touchdown, much less the number that we're seeing being laid here today. That, Lisi, was one of a few factors that told me Washington's the side here today.
Yeah, Washington's a hot team. They've won 6 straight games heading into this matchup by an average margin of victory of 6.6 points per game. To get that road win over Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Bucks was a quality job. They ran the football effectively with Jaden Daniels, and that defense basically held Bucky Irvin in check. I know Tampa Bay had 100 yards on the ground, but Irvin was held and contained 17 carries, 77 yards. They only averaged 4 yards per rush. they're going to have to bring that type of effort against David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs today. But I understand what you're saying. Now, to your point about Detroit and the NFC North, potentially they are frauds, right? And they struggle with the mobility in regards to Josh Allen. So that could be a factor as well in terms of Jaden Daniels. When you look at Detroit, they've won 7 games at home by an average margin of victory, Kev, of 18.7 points per game. But again, teams have been able to move the football in terms of putting up points. It's just that Detroit, Donnie, has been able to outscore them. I think this game flies through the total today, but I equate Washington, and I want to watch my words, from a momentum perspective, okay, of what Tampa Bay and Tom Brady had. They don't obviously have a Super Bowl winning quarterback, but they had a team that now has momentum. They've won 6 straight playing their best football heading into this game. That's what we saw Tampa Bay steal it and win the Super Bowl against Kansas City. I'm just saying they're playing with house money. I think Jaden Daniels can make a lot of plays with his legs. Yeah. I like those playmakers. And again, asking Detroit to win this by 10 or more, I think, is a lot.
And also, it does come down to the defense for Detroit. But also, having said that, Washington's defense can be had. And you're looking at a team that can really get after it, rested at home. Ben Johnson's offense, everybody hitting on all cylinders. And then you get the miracle of David Montgomery's knee rejuvenates over the past couple weeks when he looked like he wasn't going to play the rest of the way. See you next season. But if we are being honest, you look at the rookie quarterback situation, and it is technically a problem, but also, this is a rookie quarterback that started game number 1, played 17 regular season games, went into the playoffs on the road as a rookie quarterback, and was able to beat Baker Mayfield in his own building, which, he said, oh, well, Tampa was okay. Well, did you see what Tampa did last year to the Eagles? I understand the Eagles are bad, but that's a good football team with Baker Mayfield under the helm. Now, he's going to go to a much tougher environment, but there are levels to this by saying, all right, the crowd's going to be loud, but this kid isn't just getting dropped in like, hey, I just started 2 weeks ago. This is really fun, and oh, my goodness, it's going to be crazy to play Detroit. That offense is going to move the football, and also understand this, the great equalizer of a team that loves, Joe, to play man-to-man defense, which means your DBs are turned their backs to the quarterback and also bringing heavy pressure. If there are cracks in the foundation of that pass rush integrity, he's going to take advantage of it. I don't think they win this game, but I don't know, Joe, if we can look at it and say, this is a smash job, 35-10. Boy, Washington was really overcompensating on the season. They're just not ready for prime time.
Yeah, I told you in the break, first team to 40 potentially can win it. That means 40-37. Wouldn't shock me if it's right there, 40-33. I really believe both teams will score. And I don't think Detroit, to Donnie's point, takes the approach, we're going to blitz Jaden Daniels the way we did Sam Darnold. Because he breaks that first level, you could talk about 80, 90 yards maybe in the first half.
Ooh, that
maybe.
Daniel's having the highest rushing total of the quarterbacks when Lamar and Josh.
What does he have? What is his number right now?
55.5, give or take.
Not too bad.
I thought it was kind of interesting. Not a lot of reps against mobile quarterbacks this year. When you think about Detroit, Josh ran for 68 against them. Kyler ran for 45, so a long rush prop. Maybe I'm sure people will look to bet. So what's very interesting, though, when you kind of look at Washington, though, with last week's game, I think they took their time. And what would worry me about the total is I think you are going to need explosives. I think you have very methodical, bing, 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 we're inside the 5. Okay, we can go and score from here. Offenses on the field today, Joe, where it just takes one of those drives, 4th and 2. We shouldn't have ran a toss sweep.
Right.
And now the total loses 6 points.
Right. I mean, that's the downside, right? When you have a total starting at 55
and you have 2 teams that are going to go for some 4th downs.
Right. But the way I'm playing it out is that this game plays more like the Eagle game, where Barkley is like going to be like David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, breaking off explosives in the ground game. And then he's still going to have success through the air on that secondary. So I see this game getting into the mid-60s at least. But that's me. I mean,
I do like the fact that they're not going to be kicking field goals because you're trading 3s for 7s, and these two teams are very good on 4th down. But I think Kevin has a good point here. Washington in that 3rd and 3 offense, where the quarterback just goes 1,000, 2,000. I'll take 4 yards, move the sticks, clock runs.
And again, like they dominated time of possession last week against Tampa.
18 pass attempts for Tampa. That's it.
Baker was 15 of 18. Like
and lost.
We'll be right back. We'll talk more about this game next.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl, but the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was like supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Like, does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, so we're back with you right here on Pro Football Today. And one of the really interesting elements to me for this game between Detroit and Washington is Detroit's run game. From two elements. One, Montgomery's back. And we'll be able to get more and more and more into that certainly on our show today. The other is the par for the course, same story that's been going on with the Lions all year long, which is Kevin Zeitler got injured in their Week 18 win against Minnesota, and he's not playing today because this is what happens during every single Detroit game. An important player of theirs gets injured. So, you know, I don't know. Dan Campbell might have injured someone during the bye week. They're probably practicing so hard, and we just don't know about it yet. I wonder, Donnie, how much success Detroit will have running the football. One, in part because they're missing a huge piece. Two, Montgomery is the rare thing. Him coming back is not good for them. That means that they are now going to dedicate double-digit carries to a lesser player in their backfield.
But theoretically, though, it does help them because we don't know what the toll would be, let's just say, on Jahmyr Gibbs if he's carrying the ball 25 touches a game for multiple weeks on end. Can he hold up for the Super Bowl? So they do have a good scenario back, but you know what's going to happen, right? Dave Montgomery's going to start, get the first drive, punch in a touchdown, and away you go. But the jokes are, boy, you're more effective with Gibbs out there because you can hit the home run. But you're right about the offensive line, which is the foundation of that football team as they lean on it. That is a big miss. But also, at the same time, you know who cleans up a lot of mistakes on that Washington defense, had a phenomenal season? It's Bobby Wagner. He's limping around on an ankle as well. So that's one of those, hey, quick jump cut by one of these running backs. He goes down and can't finish the game. That will be a devastating blow here. Even though when you're looking at the grand scheme of things, you'd much rather have, as crazy as it sounds, a very good guard go down than a left tackle or a right tackle. I don't think that's going to be too big of an equation here, but it is going to be interesting to see how Gibbs was that main force, Joe, looked all explosive, carrying it, goal line back, 35-yard line out, hitting home runs where now Montgomery comes back, and how effective will David Montgomery be?
And do they utilize Gibbs then in terms of the passing game more so, right? He's coming off a 130-yard performance against Minnesota where they dominated, right? They put up 30-plus points. He scores a couple of touchdowns, and he looks like that all-purpose player. I mean, it is curious to see in terms of the offensive philosophy how Detroit attacks it. Do they take the ball if they're on offense first? Is it more Jared Goff in the passing attack to open up the run? Or do they just say, you know what, we have David Montgomery back, we're going to pound it right between the tackles, wear you down, and it's game on? I am curious about that. The last 5 games for for Goff. He's averaged 329 passing yards per game, right? So one of his best throughout the regular season. We'll see if he can sustain that. Again, has a high number today.
Where are you guys at on the Detroit defense? Because one of the other things, so we talk about the NFC North, and maybe people think that I'm being silly, questioning resumes of a 15-2 1 seed, which is fine. But Detroit's defense was one of the most concerning things anybody could talk about when it came to the big teams, right? And then they bottled up Minnesota, and everyone's like, man, that defense is going to be great. This is the team to beat. Doesn't what Minnesota did against L.A., Donnie, then take away from what Detroit did against Minnesota? Doesn't it kind of show that then was more of a Darnold in a big game problem than the Lions defense is awesome again thing?
Yeah, it does. And also specifically, playing that well and playing at home a little bit different because in a dome environment, when you're the home team, the offensive coordinator, or the offensive team, I should say, can't hear the signals all that well. You just go back, a week previous before that? The deadbeat 49ers with everybody injured, whoop, 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 right up and down that field in a shootout, and basically had Detroit on the ropes for that Monday Night Football game. We were questioning whether starters should play or not. But they did get Anzalone back. That makes a big difference here. They're built on pressure going up against a rookie quarterback. We'll see how he can stand up under the pressure. But I'm with you here. I'm not doubting the Detroit defense, but I don't think it was like, hey, man, you can really get after this defense. Then they start getting even more injured at this point, get a player or two back, and everything is solved because of based on what we saw against the Minnesota Vikings. And maybe, the clock just struck zero on Sam Darnold at quarterback. You are going to get a different element here. You knew where Darnold's going to be. He's right in the middle of that pocket. You're pass rushing today, and again, lane integrity is key. This kid can make plays outside the pocket for days with wideouts, Joe, that can get down the field.
Yeah, if we're talking, number 1 and number 2 seeds left, right, Detroit is nowhere near the physicality and defense of Philadelphia. I think they can get exposed. They got exposed all year long. Look at all the offenses that they played. They gave up 20 to L.A. They gave up 29 to Seattle, 29 to Minnesota, 31 in terms of Green Bay at the end of the year, right? 48 to Buffalo. This defense was a bend but don't break unit for the most part and was basically resurrected and saved by their offense outscoring people.
Yeah, I don't buy the Detroit defense fully. I'm just not running to bet an over in a game with how quickly all of a sudden you go, now come on, everyone's playing. We haven't punted all game, and Washington didn't punt last week, and they scored 23. Let's talk some NFL news next.
The defending champion Kansas City Chiefs aim for an unprecedented third straight Super Bowl. But the Texans are ready to end the dynasty. Then the Commanders, fresh off their first playoff win since 2006, take on the high-powered offense of the Detroit Lions. Start your game day with pro football today at 10 a.m. for pregame betting. Then stay in the action with in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What if he gets Kellen Moore? CS guy, right? He was supposed to be the coach in waiting when he was the offensive coordinator. Is that enough? Does Jerry pull the trigger for that? Or does he pull the trigger for Dion?
Mike McCarthy would have not let this play out this way unless he had a job. So I think McCarthy already has the New Orleans job.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.